Number 39 in the 42 Ideas on Leadership, it comes to us from the book Global Dexterity. This book was written by Andy Molinsky and published in the year 2013. The main idea at the beginning of this book is that when you're going to work in another culture, understanding that culture is just not enough. You need to be able to adapt to your life and your behavior to life in that new culture. And that's what Global Dexterity is about. Adapting in a way that feels okay for you. We're going to look at some of the challenges and the solutions to that problem now. What we have is individual A, who comes from culture A, has a comfort zone of behaviors and attitudes that are acceptable within their culture A. In culture B, there's a zone of appropriate behavior, which is a spectrum of acceptable behaviors. Now, if there's a big difference between the two cultures, culture A and culture B, then when individual A goes to culture B, they will find that there's a culture gap where they feel very uncomfortable and they're not effective in their actions in a work environment. Now, one option is to force culture B to stretch its zone of appropriate behavior until it overlaps with the comfort zone of individual A. But to be honest, you want to have a lot of power and many good reasons for doing that. Most of the time, the only realistic option is for the comfort zone of individual A to be stretched so that there's an area of overlapping with the zone of appropriate behavior in culture B. So it's stretched just far enough so that there is some overlap with the spectrum. It doesn't have to overlap completely with the zone of appropriate behavior in culture B. Now this creates three separate problems for any individual. Any individual who has to stretch their behavior until it overlaps with the other culture has a competitive challenge. Now this means that there's the competence challenge of, am I going to be able to change? Will I have the skills? Will I have the knowledge? There's the authenticity challenge, which means that maybe if I'm changing, I just won't feel comfortable with this new behavior because it's not who I am as a person. And the final challenge is the resentment challenge, is that I might even resent the other culture for forcing me to change. And I might start asking myself, why should I change? This isn't fair. So these three areas, naturally enough, create an emotional block and a logical block in the area of the competence and competitive challenge that make it even more difficult to stretch our comfort zone so that it overlaps with the zone of appropriate behavior in our destination culture. There are three things we can do to make this process of adapting easier. The first is diagnosis, the second is customization, and the third is integration. Let's look at these in a little bit more detail. Diagnosis is looking at the 6 areas of cultural difference that create most problems for us when we're adapting in another culture. The first one is directness. How straightforward can I be when I'm communicating in other cultures, or in this culture B? Enthusiasm is, how much positive emotion and energy can I show and am I expected to show in this other culture? Formality is about how much respect and deference that I'm expected to demonstrate in this other culture. Assertiveness is, am I expected to express my voice or not in this culture? Self-promotion is, how am I allowed to speak positively about my skills and accomplishments, or is it something that I should keep to myself? And finally, personal disclosure. How much can I reveal about myself in this particular culture? So these are the diagnosis of the culture. So you look at these areas. How direct can I be? How much positive emotions can I show? How much formality do I have to show? How assertive can I be? How much can I talk about my own abilities? And how much can I say about myself? This is the first element, the diagnosis. And we identify if there is a culture gap between our comfort zone and the zone of appropriate behavior in culture B in any of these areas. This is the first thing, our diagnosis. The second is customization. If we have identified a culture gap and we have to stretch it, then what do we do? Well, There are 4 different strategies for customizing, which means changing a little bit the way we behave so we can still feel authentic in what we're doing without having that culture gap. So the first one is that we change our behavior to this new behavior by linking it to our personal goals. So we say, this is what I want to achieve, so therefore this is what I have to do. The next one is linking the new behavior to your personal values. You may say that you're a fair person, so therefore in this culture you have to act in this way because it links to your sense of fairness, to your personal value, even though it breaks another personal value, which might be maybe not or avoiding conflict. That might be a personal value that you like to have, that you prefer not to create conflict, but you have an even stronger personal value that you can link to, which is your need to be fair in all contexts. The third one is linking the new behavior to your cultural values. The reason I've put in there that you have several is that maybe the new behavior that you're being asked to adapt or adopt, it breaks one of your cultural values, but maybe you could link it to other cultural values because we have many. Again, going back to maybe we avoid conflict as a culture, but in another sense, we like to be fair. So therefore, we're going to overcome our dislike of conflict because of our love of fairness. And then the final one there in terms of customization is seeing the behavior from the perspective of the other culture. Instead of seeing it through the lenses of our own culture, we try to look at the rationale behind this behavior from the other culture, culture B's point of view. And this makes it easier to understand why we should change our behavior. So these are the 4 ways that Andy Molinsky suggests for customizing our behavior, our new behavior, in a way that doesn't break our feeling of authenticity and is adaptable to the new situation and doesn't maybe build resentment in us either. The third one then is integration. One thing is that we've identified where the culture gap is. The second is that we've now customized a new behavior that feels authentic for us. But the third thing is that we have to integrate it. So familiarization is the first element. This is the reason we use acts is because Molinsky identifies as like an actor would do these 3 elements. So we become familiar with the role, we look at what we have to do, we observe, we look at what the new behavior should be. Then we rehearsal. We have a rehearsal we have the rehearsal with friends perhaps, or in a neutral environment where it's not going to have a huge risk for us. And then the final then would be the dress rehearsal, where we carry it out in this behavior in a context that is very real, but at the same time has lower levels of risk for us if anything goes wrong. So these are 3 areas, but we have to put it into practice. And once we put it into practice, we should develop a personal scorecard to see how we're doing. The external scorecard is where we judge our external performance. Have the way we've been performing with this new behavior, has it been effective? And the second one is our internal scorecard. How does it feel now to carry out this behavior? Are we a little bit more comfortable with it? And do we have to rethink it about how to customize it and make it feel better for us to actually do this new behavior? These are the 3 elements then. We've got the diagnosis, we've got customization, and we've got integration. And together they make Global Dexterity, a book by Andy Molinsky, published in 2013. That's number 39 in the 42 Ideas on Leadership.